Section 3:2 Introduction to Modern Portfolio Theory, 3.2 Correlation and Covariance Analysis. Calculating the correlation and covariance between asset returns involves statistical analysis. Here's how you can calculate and interpret these measures. Calculate the covariance. The covariance measures the relationship between the returns of two assets and is a measure of how their returns move together. The formula to calculate covariance is as follows: COV x y equals sigma x I mu x y I mu y /n1, where COV x y is the covariance between assets x and y. X I and y I are the returns of assets x and y at observation I. Mu x and mu y are the means, averages, of the returns of assets x and y, respectively. N is the total number of observations. Interpreting covariance, a positive covariance indicates that the returns of the two assets tend to move together, meaning they have a positive relationship. A negative covariance indicates that the returns of the two assets tend to move in opposite directions, meaning they have a negative relationship. The magnitude of the covariance does not provide a clear measure of the strength of the relationship between the assets. It is affected by the units of measurement and can be difficult to interpret on its own. Calculate the correlation. The correlation coefficient normalizes the covariance by dividing it by the standard deviations of the two assets. The formula to calculate correlation is as follows: COR x y equals COV x y /sigma x sigma y, where COR x y is the correlation coefficient between assets x and y. COV x y is the covariance between assets x and y. Sigma x and sigma y are the standard deviations of the returns of assets x and y, respectively. Interpreting correlation, the correlation coefficient ranges from -1 to 1. A correlation coefficient of 1 indicates a perfect positive correlation, meaning the two assets move in perfect unison. A correlation coefficient of -1 indicates a perfect negative correlation, meaning the two assets move in exact opposite directions. A correlation coefficient of 0 indicates no correlation or a random relationship between the assets. Values between -1 and 1 indicate varying degrees of correlation. The closer the correlation coefficient is to -1 or 1, the stronger the correlation. It's important to note that correlation and covariance are based on historical data and may change over time. Therefore, it is recommended to use a sufficient number of observations and consider the relevance of the data in the current market context when interpreting these measures. Calculating and interpreting correlation and covariance between asset returns helps investors understand the relationship between different assets and is useful for constructing diversified portfolios, managing risk, and optimizing asset allocation decisions. The relationship between asset correlation and portfolio risk is a crucial aspect of portfolio management. The correlation between assets in a portfolio can significantly impact the overall risk of the portfolio. Here's how the asset correlation influences portfolio risk. Positive correlation: when assets in a portfolio have positive correlation, their returns tend to move in the same direction. In this case, portfolio risk, positive correlation increases the overall risk of the portfolio. When assets move together, they are more likely to experience simultaneous downturns, leading to higher portfolio volatility. Diversification benefits: positive correlation limits the diversification benefits of the portfolio. As assets move in the same direction, their risk-reducing effect on the portfolio is diminished. In other words, positive correlation reduces the potential for one asset's positive performance to offset another asset's negative performance. Negative correlation: when assets in a portfolio have negative correlation, their returns tend to move in opposite directions. In this case, portfolio risk, negative correlation decreases the overall risk of the portfolio. When assets move in opposite directions, their price movements offset each other, resulting in lower portfolio volatility. Diversification benefits: negative correlation enhances the diversification benefits of the portfolio. As assets move in opposite directions, the risk-reducing effect is magnified. One asset's positive performance has a higher likelihood of offsetting another asset's negative performance, resulting in a more stable portfolio. Zero correlation: when assets in a portfolio have zero correlation, their returns are independent of each other. In this case, portfolio risk, zero correlation can help reduce the overall risk of the portfolio. The lack of a relationship between asset returns means that they are not moving in tandem. Therefore, the portfolio is less exposed to the volatility of any individual asset. Diversification benefits. Zero correlation provides the maximum diversification benefits. The lack of a relationship between assets means that each asset's performance is independent of others, resulting in a higher potential for risk reduction through diversification. It's important to note that while negative or zero correlation generally indicates lower portfolio risk, correlation alone is not sufficient to assess portfolio risk comprehensively. Other factors, such as the volatility, standard deviation, of individual assets and their weightings in the portfolio, also play a role. Additionally, correlation can change over time, so regular monitoring and adjustments to the portfolio are necessary to maintain the desired risk exposure. In summary, asset correlation plays a significant role in portfolio risk. Negative correlation enhances diversification benefits and reduces overall portfolio risk, while positive correlation limits diversification benefits and increases portfolio risk. Zero correlation provides the maximum diversification benefits. Understanding the relationship between asset correlation and portfolio risk helps investors construct well-diversified portfolios that align with their risk tolerance and investment objectives.